How's it going? David from Comic Book Investments. So in this video, we're going to look at 5 keys that are massively dropping in price. Some of them up by 80%. Yes, 80%. And some pretty interesting ones on here. Let's just get right into it. First up was we got Ultimate Spider-Man #1. A 9.4 is down 70% from 2009 is when it hit its peak of $270, now selling for $80. A 9.6 down 64% from its peak back in 2006 for $350, now $125. And a 9.8 peak back all the way back in 2004, just slightly after CGC came out, for $11.75, now selling for $3.75. That is down 68%. So yes, very interesting one on here because it pretty much peaked in the beginning, almost like right when CGC came out, and then has ever since been dropping. Just recently it started coming up a bit. I would say probably in the last like 2 years. Yeah, even with the comic boom, it's just slowly went down and it's slowly just coming back up. Will it reach its highs of $11.75? I don't know. Like, I think there's just a lot of hype with the Ultimate Universe way back in the day, and that has been, it's gone now. The Ultimate Universe is pretty much gone. I really don't see that. I mean, that's the problem with like modern books is they peak when there's a bunch of hype and then they don't have any sustainability. And I mean, it's cool, Ultimate Spider-Man #1, but going all the way back up to its, that's what, like, think about this. When you look at a book now that comes out and there's all this hype and FOMO around the book, it's like, where's this book going to be in 10, 20 years? Well, we have real data to show that, hey, it had many opportunities. I mean, this is all the way back in 2004. So we're looking at almost 20 years of history, had many opportunities to come back up again, and it never really did. It like went up and this started going down, and this more and more. Like recently it's been going up a little bit, but the last 2 years, but is that going to be sustained? And is it going to be enough to propel this book in another 20 years that it's going to go back to its highs of $11.75? I don't, like, even with the comic boom, it didn't really reach that. So I don't really see that happening. And that's the problem with a lot of modern books that you have to understand is it comes down to supply and demand. And even though this came out a long time ago, and people, it's not like today. Today it's like much worse. Like much worse. I've always tried to explain to people today is much worse because you literally have people that get comic books, could be some hot book that people, go buy this book. And the comic shops will literally just grab a stack, 10, 15, whatever, send it to CGC, all come back 9.8s. At least way back then in the early 2000s, this book was actually being read and damaged and people didn't really think about, oh, should I CGC this book? So getting a 9.8 is probably, it's probably much more rare than a brand new comic book now. Now brand new comic books now, all of them are going to be 9.8s and 9.6s. So, all right, next we got X-Men 4. This is the first appearance of Omega Red. 9.4 down 79% from 141, now selling for 30. 9.6 down 65% from 286 to 100, and a 9.8 is down 70% from 401 to 120. This was put on. If I put comics on here that a lot of times the people want to see, so if you just comment below a book that you're like curious, you want my opinion on, you want to know what's happening to it, all that kind of stuff. I try to get to everyone's I possibly can, but I really only have 5 slots a week. And sometimes there's books I want to talk about, like that Ultimate Spider-Man #1 I found interesting. So yeah, this is someone who wanted me to put it on here. So comment below on my going down or going up videos, whatever it is, I'll check it out and, see if it fits. Sometimes I check it out and I'm like, there's no real conclusive evidence. And sometimes I look and they put it on, it's going up, and actually it's going down. Things like that. And then I try to get to everyone's comment as much as I can, at least I put it on the list. So that's what's going on with this book. Next is What If #10. A 9.4 is down 67% from 511 to 169. A 9.6 is down 71% to 790 to 230. And a 9.8 is down 69% from 2150 to 659. I think I can be pretty, confident in my statement here that I do not believe that this book will ever get to its highs in when it was in 2021, 2022. I don't think it'll ever get back to that level and surpass it. I mean, a lot of books, they've dropped, but I always feel confident, like, okay, this is a good book. I think this really doesn't have much going for it. The only reason, like, if you go back pre-2019, it was worth a couple $100 at the most for years, since the beginning of, CGC, only worth a couple $100 in a 9.8. And then all of a sudden it gets announced that, hey, they're going to do Jane Foster's Thor. Even though they already had the Jane Foster Thor series, that didn't really boost it very much. And then the movie comes out, gets a boost, then you have a little COVID bump and all that kind of stuff. This is going to drop back down. I don't see it. This book wasn't really that. I've personally gotten like distributor boxes of this book of just like 50 and all in top grade. I think we even got a couple 9.8s out of it, and I used to sell them for like next to nothing. Then after they announced all this stuff, I went looking through and I found a bunch of old ones I didn't end up selling. But yeah, I'm sorry. This book it's not going to go back up to that. Will it continue to drop down to its levels of being around $200-$300? I don't think so. I think it's going to settle around the $400 to $500 range. Next, we got Tomb of Dracula number 12. This is second appearance of Blade. 9.0 is down 62% from 585 to 224. A 9.2 is down 58% from 650 to 275. And a 9.6 is down 50% from 1446 to 721. I think this book, it's dropped by like 50%, but that's not a whole lot. It's a lot, and a lot of people are like, well, that's 50%, but you're also thinking from the tippity top, right? That's not like the average of what it's selling during the time. That's like the most expensive ones ever sold. And if you guys know about when sales happen, you have ones that sell for a really high amount, then you have stuff that sells lower. You can have a 30% difference in the exact same month, not based off any news or anything like that. Just in the same month by someone like, I want to buy it now and I'm willing to pay top dollar, and someone else like, oh, this went in an auction, or someone listed it for really cheap and they want to get rid of it or whatever it is, and they bought it. You can have a 30% difference in the exact same month. Within the same week, you can have a 30% difference. So 50% is not that big of a deal. Am I really worried? I think they're still moving forward with the Blade movie. And people will ask, like, what does the movie have to do with anything? Well, it just puts that character. Think about this. Someone like Venom. If Venom only stayed in the comic books, no movies, no cartoons, animated, whatever, nothing, he wouldn't be nearly as popular as he is now. That you can say that about every single character, because of the fact that they're on T-shirts, they have toys, like animated, whatever. They get their own, or they're in co-starring in someone else's animated show, get their own movies. That just makes them more popular, brings in more fans, because there's lots of people that don't collect comics, don't read comics, but then they watch Spider-Man and then they fall in love with Spider-Man. They watch a cartoon, TV show, whatever, and then they're like, I really like Spider-Man. And they start doing some digging. It's like, oh, he first appeared in Fantasy 15. And they're like, I have money. That would be cool because I'm really into Spider-Man. So then they go out and buy Fantasy 15. And I know people like that. Literally never read the comic books, never watch a cartoon. Maybe they just watch the movie. Maybe they have a cool t-shirt. Maybe they get a statue, something like that. So the more these characters show up in different forms of mediums, widens, gets more fans, brings it down to certain books. All right, last on this list is Avengers 8, first appearance of Kang. A 4.0 is down 72% from 1,700 to 480. Ooh, ow. 6.5 is down 42% from 2,400 to 1,400. And 9.4 is down 48% from 14,000 to 7,500. So with Kang, it's not looking good because Jonathan Majors, is the actor, and he's in a bunch of hot water for strangling a girl and beating her up, or I don't know. The jury's not out yet, so not entirely sure what is going to happen with him and the character. They might have to recast him. Since the court date is not going away and all that stuff is not really being settled, I mean, Marvel's thinking, should we just recast him now? Because you don't want to start filming and then all of a sudden the guy goes to court. He actually did strangle the girl. He's facing jail time. Then it's like, well, you know. So who knows what they're going to do with this character. First of all, and second of all, I didn't find him that great. I said it in my Ant-Man review. Everyone was like, oh, he did such a great job. And I'm like, okay, he said the lines and he said them okay, but I didn't. I mean, maybe it's him or maybe it's the writers of the story or whatever it is, but I didn't find him a very like threatening villain. Like he's about the same threat level as, what was that elf guy in Thor 2? Or like that's about the threat level I felt with him. It was just like, oh, okay, he's there. Like I didn't feel like he was a big threat like Thanos or anything like that. So, and the end scene where they're all like, and it's a bunch of like, they just copy and paste and put a bunch of him in there. I'm like, oh, looks so cheesy. That end scene, if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch Ant-Man 3. End scene reminds me of Spawn when he goes to hell and they literally just had the actor go like this or do some kind of pose or something, and they just copied and pasted and put a bunch of them in there. That's literally what it looked like. I'm like, oh, it's so bad. It just didn't look good. CGI was bad. And that movie bombed. No two ways about it. Lost money. I know a lot of people were like, but it made hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, yeah, just because it makes hundreds of millions of dollars doesn't mean it's a success. It's called profit. How much money did you put into it? Now, the budget was, I think, supposed to be like 150 million. Then it ballooned with reshoots because they can never decide what they want to do, and they always change their mind. Reshoots ballooned it up to 200 million. Then you have marketing costs, which is probably 100 to 200 million. Then you also have to understand that the theater takes a cut. So add that all in, and I think their break-even point was like 600 million, and they made like 480. To give you an example, they made less than Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2. Yes, Ant-Man 3 made less, even though it cost more to make. And on top of that, it also had the biggest opening weekend out of the three. So that means people went and saw it, and they're like, not for me. And it's also not just getting the general public to be super into it. That's the problem with the MCU. It's just, yeah, you have your comic book fans that are going to go see it opening weekend. But then after that, regular people aren't that jazzed, that into it. So I don't really know what's going to go with Kang. I honestly don't see, what is it, Avengers 5 and 6 are going to be, the Kang movies, I think. I think they're just going to, Marvel's going to be in for a rude awakening when those movies do not do very well, or at least they hope. Will they cross $1 billion? Yeah, it's possible. I could see that, but it's not going to be like the $2.5 billion that the other Avengers were crossing. It's probably, Avengers 5 will probably be close to the lowest performing Avengers. And then I think it's this, they need to really do something different. So yeah, this book, Kang is still popular in the comic books. So this little bump in the road is probably not, and it's also an early Avengers issue. So will it ever reach its heights where, it once was? Sure, eventually I think it'll get back up there. And Marvel could turn around and make Kang an actual character that people care about. Personally, they need to put in Galactus. I mean, on the surface, Kang looks a great character and could be a cool threat. But they introduced this like multiverse thing, so nothing really matters. And so they've kind of taken away the stakes. Then he gets beat by a bunch of ants. So it's like, okay, if ants could just easily beat him, and Ant-Man pretty much beat him, Thor and the Hulk and Doctor Strange could, like that, destroy him. So I don't know. You're not really making a case for Thanos, for Kang, to make him to be this big, powerful villain. So he's like, I don't know. I feel like he's less threatening than Ultron. He's about as threatening as, I guess, Loki, in the first Avengers. But the first Avengers was more about how the team is coming together. Now the team's already together. It puts more emphasis on the villain and whatever. All right, have a good weekend.